Good afternoon, participants. Ms. Nupur Kaula, speaker, and my colleagues. Welcome to uh, our webinar today. I would like to introduce our speaker to all of you, Ms. Nupur Kaul. She is the founder of the Mind Studio and has an MSc in Sports and Exercise Psychology degree from Sheffield Hallam University, UK, and an MA in Industrial and Organizational Psychology degree from Mirabai College of Arts, India. She has also achieved a great deal in the world of sports. She was former national skater and an international lawn tennis player. She focuses on combining the physical and mental aspects to facilitate a holistic learning approach. The Mind Studio focuses to fill the need gap in the psychological aspects of the sports field and help athletes enhance their athletic performance as well as develop psychological skills to cope with mental obstacles and hurdles. The Mind Studio aims to promote sports psychology from a wellness view rather than only an illness view. My colleague and I, and on the behalf of NSM, we would like to welcome Ms. Nupur Kaul. And ma'am, you can start the session. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so much for such a wonderful introduction. I'll just get my presentation running and we will begin today's webinar. Right, okay. So today's topic is esports and its impact on mental health. Before we begin, I got a wonderful introduction, but this is a bit more about me. Like it was said, I did my Masters of Arts in Industrial and Organizational Psychology and an MSc in Sport and Exercise Psychology. I'm the founder of the Mind Studio and I'm affiliated with multiple academies as a sports psychologist. I have a few publications to my name, and I'm a former national skater and a former international lawn tennis player. Now, before we move on with the webinar about the impact of esports and its impact on mental health, we'll try and understand what is sports psychology a bit more in depth, and then we'll move on to learning more about esports and mental health. So, sports psychology is basically the study and the application of psychological principles of human performance to help athletes consistently perform to the best of their abilities, along with enjoying the sport performance process. Now, what this basically means that as a sports psychologist, I would give an athlete or a person certain techniques, certain strategies in order to enhance their athletic performance, but also at the same time to enjoy the sporting performance, because that's really important to increase the longevity of their careers. So a sports psychologist would work in two ways. One is to overcome certain mental obstacles or hurdles. So if an athlete comes to me saying that, I lack confidence or I'm lacking motivation, or I don't just feel like playing, I'm not being able to manage my emotions when I'm on the court or I'm on the field. So those would be certain obstacles, certain hurdles, which I would help them overcome. And the second is to enhance athletic performance by developing the strengths of an athlete. So over here, what it means is that I'm going to help an athlete turn their strengths into super strengths. So if an athlete comes to me who is really good in concentration, they can concentrate, they can focus really well when they are playing their matches. Now, what I would do is I would still give that athlete certain skills, certain techniques to elongate the level of concentration they already have, thereby enhancing their performance even more. So these are two ways an sports psychologist helps an athlete. Now, if you can see the diagram on the right side of your screen, this is how I make people, athletes, coaches, parents understand the importance of the mind or sports psychology in today's sporting world. So any sport, whether you play it at the amateur level, whether you play it at the elite level, they will have four components. They have the physical component, which includes things such as a person's stamina, their agility, their physical fitness. Everything goes into physical over there. Then you have the technical aspect, which includes things such as how technically sound you are while hitting the ball if you're a tennis player, or how technically sound you are when you are running. Do your legs move in the correct manner? Is your technique correct? So that all comes in the technical aspect. Then is the tactical aspect, which is basically, can I figure out my opponent's strengths and weaknesses and be able to devise and create certain plans in my mind in order to beat my opponent? Those are the tactics what I develop in order to win. And finally, we come to the psychological aspect, which is what in Crux we're going to deal with today. Everything that happens in your mind, your motivation, confidence, managing emotions. Can I concentrate on the present moment rather than thinking too much about the past or too much about the uncertain future? Everything that happens in your mind comes in the psychological aspect. And that is why for every athlete, you need to develop a holistic approach. You need a holistic approach to be able to be the best in your sport. You cannot leave out any of these aspects and then expect an athlete to perform to the best of their abilities. So, these are the four components or aspects of sports, and all four of them need to be given weightage for an athlete to perform to the best of their ability. Right, now we'll move on to the main crux of today's webinar. So before we move on to the mental health, the effects video gaming has on mental health, we need to be able to understand the differentiation between esports and video gaming addiction. Now, what is esports? Basically, esports is a form of competition using video games. That is basic knowledge. But esports are also organized. They are organized competitions. They are real time, means there are live competitions. There is generally a huge prize pool for the winner. Multiple player, either individual, you play one on one, or in teams. And the major component of esports is that it attracts broadcasters and viewers. Uh, like you can see in the picture on the right, this is a competition of League of Legends. So you have people competing, the players competing, you have a crowd, the viewers who have come to watch them. There are also broadcasters who live stream these competitions on various channels in order for viewers sitting at home also, they follow these competitions live. So this is what esports is. Now there are multiple types of esports which are given in detail in the slide, but we won't get into it right now. Uh, but this is esports. When a player is playing esports, they know that I am playing this for my career. I have taken this as my career. This is my profession, and I'm not addicted to it. They have a regime, they have a routine which they follow. They will not play it as and when they want. Like how we play normal sports, we play it for a couple of hours in the morning, then probably training in the evening. The same is for players who play esports. They have a particular routine. They have a sports psychologist who they hire so that they can mentally be ready to play these long competitions, because it requires tremendous amount of concentration and focus. So that is esports, which is professional. A lot of people have taken it as a career. What we will be focusing on today is video game addiction. Now, video game addiction is compulsive or uncontrolled use of video games in a way that causes problems in other areas of a person's life. So we have to understand that video game addiction is something that is compulsive or uncontrolled. I do not have control if I want to play or do not want to play. I just have to, right? And that is what is affecting the mental health of people in general, kids, young adults, older adults, everyone. This is what it's affecting. So video games include computer games, console games, arcade machine games, and even cell phone games like your Candy Crush. So games can also be embedded in social networking sites such as Facebook. So wherever you go, you always find video games around you. When game playing is addictive, it takes over as the person's main way of coping with life, with other important areas of life being neglected or disrupted as a result. So, what we have to understand over here is that it is uncontrolled or compulsive, and a person who is addicted to video games or is on the path to getting addicted to video games, it affects the other areas of their life. Okay, and that is why video game addiction is affecting the mental health of a lot of people. This is a major distinction between video gaming addiction and what we spoke about previously, esports. Over here, it is organized, there are competitions, they have prize pools, it's in real time. Over here, when we talk about video gaming addiction, there is nothing of this sort. They just play for hours and hours together without any agenda. So, this is for everyone who spends hours on a daily basis playing video games with no agenda, with no prize pool, with no broadcasters, with no viewers. It's not organized. This is what we're going to talk about today. So, what are the signs of video game addiction? Now, you need to have 5 or more of these signs in 1 year to be categorized as someone who is on the path or who has a video game addiction. ऐसा नहीं है कि I have one sign and throughout the year and I'm addicted to video games. It doesn't work like that. And you need to have 5 or more of these signs to then seek therapy and go into consultation with a therapist to kind of reduce your video game addiction. The first sign is thinking about gaming all or a lot of the time. So probably even when you're eating your dinner or you're with family, you're with friends, but the only thing that keeps going on in your mind is your video game that you're thinking about. Probably how I'm going to go back later to my room and play the video game. What are the different strategies that I would make in order to win? Anything and everything about that video game is continuously going on in your mind. And that's why you're thinking about the game all the time or most of the time. Then feeling bad when you cannot play. Feeling bad, feeling angry, agitated, irritated, annoyed. Whenever you cannot play, you have these negative emotions and you do not like them basically. Then having problems at work, school, or home because of your gaming. So, like I said, it's not only affecting kids, children, it's also affecting adults. And that is the reason a lot of the other areas of life get affected, such as work, school, or home. Then lying to people close to you about how much time you spend playing. Now, people close to you obviously would tell you that you're playing too many video games, stop playing. And because you want to continuously play, and because it's an uncontrolled behavior, like we discussed in the previous slide, it's a compulsive behavior, you have no choice. You just have to play, and that is why you start lying to close ones about the time you are, or the duration you are playing your video games. Then needing to spend more and more time playing to feel good. So if people play a lot of video games, think about the first time you started. How much time did you play and feel good about it? And think about today or yesterday, and now think about how much time you have played to feel better and better. The time, the duration keeps on increasing. Might have started with I played for half an hour, I felt good, I left the game. Next day, I want to play for an hour. Then I want to play for 2 hours. Then I want to play for 4 hours. The time you want to play that video game keeps increasing and increasing as you play that game more and more to feel better, to feel good. Not being able to quit or even play less. Like we discussed, it's an uncontrolled compulsive behavior, and therefore, even if you don't want to play, even if you want to reduce the time you want to play, you cannot. You just can't stop playing. It's a compulsion. Not wanting to do other things that you used to like. So if I used to like, going out with my friends, or, spending time with my family or cooking, but now I'm not doing those activities because the only thing I'm doing is playing video games. So I am not only uh, keeping people away from me, but I'm also not doing the things I used to like because of the new addiction of video games. Then using gaming to ease bad moods and feelings. So I think this is a very important point, because whenever you feel bad, you feel stressed, you feel any type of tension, anxiety, there are always certain healthy coping strategies which we can put into use in order to ease that negative feeling that we are having, such as, you exercise to feel good, you might meditate, you might cook, you might garden, you might do gardening, you might do any stress relieving activity. You might try to journal as well, because that's also very stress relieving. These are healthy coping strategies. When we use video games to make us feel good, to release that stress, release that tension, it becomes an unhealthy coping strategy, because this is addictive. Writing a journal, exercising, cooking, gardening, these are not addictive behaviors that you have to compulsively do in a day. But when you put video games as a coping strategy, it becomes addictive, and you need to uh, play this for longer periods of time in order to feel better. And that is why using video games as a coping strategy is a unhealthy way of coping with any negative emotion that you might be facing. Right, so now we've known what are the signs of video game addiction. Let's come to the effects. Now, these are the general effects of video game addiction, and it's divided into 4 categories. The first is financial. So it affects you financially because you're playing it instead of working. Like I said, video game addiction is also on a high in a lot of older adults and younger adults as well who are working. And if you're staying up late at night playing video games, you're not being able to concentrate on your work, it is going to affect sooner or later, and it might affect you financially as well. Then socially, so you're playing it when you should be with friends or family and start feeling socially isolated. So it's a very important point over here, the ending of that sentence, which says that you start feeling socially isolated. So a gamer or a video game person who's addicted to video games will start feeling socially isolated. They want to hang out with with their friends. They want to relax with their family. They used to like doing these things, but right now they're not being able to leave that video game and go towards spending time with their friends and family, and that is what is making them socially isolated. Because after a certain point of time, people will stop inviting them. Like, how many times will your friends invite you if you always say no and start lying to them about playing video games? So they start feeling a bit socially isolated as well. Then psychologically, so it makes you feel anxious, depressed, and there is increased aggressive thoughts and behaviors, especially in children under the age of 10. Also, what it does psychologically for you, it also decreases your motivation level. And how does it do that? Is because what we want from video games is often very similar to what we want from life. What do we want from life? We want excitement, adventure, friendships, victories, and status. Now, games have found a way to serve that to us with very little effort. Let's take a game like PUBG. Now you play in a group, so you are serving the option of friendships. You develop new friendships over there, or you go on adventures with your friends in that game. So even adventures get sorted. There are new themes which keep popping up with every single upgrade of that app. So there is newness in that. When you win, you get stars. You get, your friends, be like, wow, you won that game, it was a good game. So you get that recognition, you get that status, you get everything in one single game. But if you want this from life, you have to work hard. If you want status and recognition in life, you have to work hard for years together. And that is what the patience level is decreasing of people, because all that you get from a game. And that is why it affects your motivation levels, because you're not motivated enough to put in that hard work in real life. And finally, physiologically. So there are a lot of injuries that people who are addicted to video games or who play video games at hours together have, such as repetitive stress injuries. So basically, when you play too much with your thumbs, there's something that called as gamer's thumb that you get, or you get a tennis elbow, or there's so much eye strain because of all the graphics of the video games, all the colors popping up. It strains your eyes. And obviously, when you're sitting in a slouch position, probably playing the whole day, it is going to affect you physiologically. So these are the four effects of video game addiction: financial, social, psychological, and physiological. Okay, so a lot of people might have seen seen this game, played this game, very prevalent in adults as compared to children. Candy Crush. A lot of people have played this game, to the extent that they have three versions of one game, and it is in the top 10 downloadable games in this time. So all the three versions are there in the top 10 downloadable games. So why is Candy Crush so popular? What makes it so popular is that it satisfies the bored public. People on commutes who are looking for something to eat up the minutes, people with jobs that are probably not mentally demanding. You're probably cooking and you have 5 minutes for the water to boil, or you have 2 minutes for the water to boil, and you start playing that game. So this game is not in real time. You can start the app, close the app whenever you feel. You're not actually competing with other people. So you can start and stop whenever you want, and therefore it's very common to use this game, especially when you're bored for those 3 or 4 minutes when you have nothing to do, especially when you're commuting. There's traffic. What do? You start playing this game. Lunch break at office or at home, you're eating, don't have anyone to talk to. What do? You start playing this game. And that is why it is so popular in the market. So that is why also Candy Crush has three versions. Now there's another reason why Candy Crush has three versions of the same game. When you play this game for a long period of time, or if you're losing too much, it automatically times you out from the app. Now if it times you out from the one app, it doesn't mean you cannot play the second game. So what people have started to do, they download all the three versions of the game, and they move from one app to the other whenever they've played for a long period of time, or whenever they're losing too much. And that is why all the three versions are very popular. So why is it so addictive? What is so addictive in this game, apart from it not being real time so you can play it whenever you want? It's very addictive because humans hate leaving goals incomplete. So for people who play this game, they know that there are various levels. There are goals which you achieve. The starting goals, level 1, 2, 3, 4, are very easy. That generally happens in all games because they want more people to play at least the first few levels. So the first few levels are always going to be a little easier. So whenever you achieve a level, or whenever you achieve a task, you get stars or you get certain bonuses. And that is what makes us feel good. Ki, I have achieved something. Now, when you keep playing for hours and hours and you're going up the levels, you reach level 100, 150, it obviously gets more difficult. Now, because it's getting more difficult, it takes more time to complete the goals. And there are going to be times you don't complete it on the first try. Now, why don't we stop playing the game then? Because as humans, we are evolved to complete tasks, to complete goals. We hate not completing something. So the same thing happens, when you might read a boring novel. You thought it was interesting in the start, and the minute you start reading, you get a little bored. But you still kind of, for certain reasons, you just finish it. That is because we don't like leaving goals incomplete. It happens even with TV shows. The first season was very good, very intriguing. We watched it, we loved it. But the minute it reaches probably the 15th season, it gets very boring. But we still see it. We might not put our 100% concentration to it, but we still finish the full thing because we don't want to leave it in the middle. We want to complete that goal. And that is the reason why these games are so addictive, because they have various levels, and they are never ending games. The more levels you complete, the with each update, the more levels the makers will keep adding. So that is why it's very addictive, because we don't like leaving goals incomplete. We want to complete them. And that is why at the higher levels you have to put in more and more time to be able to complete the goals, because the levels get more and more difficult. So that is why even games like Candy Crush are very addictive, even though this is not an e-sport. It's still not categorized as an e-sport. So now with the pandemic, why has video gaming addiction increased to such a huge level, especially in the pandemic? So, despite the widespread economic disruption caused by the pandemic, a lot of businesses have suffered, but the video games industry is thriving. Why? Because gaming has provided an engaging distraction for people seeking social interaction. The games aren't simply about individuals escaping the real world, but about going virtually somewhere together. Now, obviously, with the pandemic and with businesses suffering, there is a lot of stress, tension, anxiety, a lot of negative emotions that people are feeling, and they don't want to feel that. What do they do when they don't want to feel that? They want to have a distraction. And video gaming is a very addictive distraction. It's a lot of fun to play, and that fun after a certain point of time becomes very dangerous. And that is why gaming has become an engaging distraction for the people because of the pandemic. Now, like we said earlier also, it's not only about escaping the real world or having a distraction from the real world, it's also going somewhere together with your friends virtually. A lot of live games you play as a team, so you have that social interactions with your friends. So I know people who probably haven't spoken to friends in so many years, but they meet on that app, PUBG, Clash of Clans, and they talk and catch up on life. But they're doing that in the game. They won't call, they won't text, but in the game they'll decide, okay, I'm going to come at in the night after dinner, and then we'll play together. So that is a distraction along with people who you want to spend time with. Then the lockdown has caused fear, anxiety, and distress, which gives rise to insomnia, irritability, and even aggression. So, a sense of competence might also have been impacted by missing out on compliments from problem solving at work and feeling powerless about the pandemic situation. So, now the lockdown caused fear, anxiety, distress, which has led to insomnia. So, we have time to play that game. It has taken out routines because we don't have to go to work, we don't have to go to school, so we have a lot of time. And also aggression. A lot of people, because they feel helpless, hopeless in this current situation, it leads to irritability, it leads to aggression. And when you find somewhere in a game where you can blow up things, where you can shoot, where you can just go wild, it is a sense of release. And that is why video games have become such a big addiction during the pandemic. They can release that aggression in that game. And obviously when you cross certain levels or when you win games, you get a sense of achievement, which is kind of missing out because a lot of people do not get it from problem solving at work. That area of life has been taken out. So where we always want to get compliments, as humans we like compliments, we like to problem solve, and that we apply, except instead of applying it at work, we're applying it at video games. And obviously, like I said, lack of routine and too much free time. Probably as people who go to work, you all woke up every morning, had a schedule, breakfast, and then you all went to work, probably came back in the evening, spent time with family, watched TV for a couple of hours and called it a night. So that was your routine. For people, for kids who go to school, probably woke up, had tuition in the morning, breakfast, going to school, coming back, probably tuitions again, hopefully exercising a little, going for some kind of sport, evening homework, and some TV, and then calling it a night probably. So you had a routine fixed. Whatever your routine was, you had it. But now there is no routine, and because of that lack of routine and too much free time, what do? If you're not going to be productive, we'll just play video games, because that is what everyone is also doing. So that is also what builds on the addiction. So now, how do we cope with it? So to cope, there are certain strategies that we can use, and let's talk about certain strategies which we can put into practice from today. One is set time limits for play and stick to them. Keep check with a diary. So I know this is easier said than done. Probably people who feel that they are playing a lot of video games or internet addiction or whatever addiction you might have, they might have tried to keep a routine of it. I have to play only this much time, or I have to be on the internet only for this much amount of time, but they haven't been able to adhere to it. So how can we adhere to it is by keeping a diary. So say that from today, I'm going to start playing video games only for 30 minutes a day. Okay, that is my routine. So 30 minutes in the evening, I will play and I'll write it down in my diary. Now, if I have completed it, if I have stuck to that task and played only for 30 minutes, I can put a smiley next to it. I can give myself a star. I can put a tick mark, anything that which gives me some sort of contentment, some sort of happiness ki I have achieved a task. So I have ticked marked, I have done it. Okay, very good. Now next day, I do the same thing. 30 minutes, completed the task, I put a tick mark, I put a star. I feel happy. Now, when for a week, if I have been able to adhere to that schedule of mine and I look back at it in my diary, I feel good about myself. I am motivating myself, giving myself confidence from that diary which I have been maintaining. It acts as a source of good data for me कि I have been able to stick to what I thought about for at least a week. Now, what happens if I don't stick to it? Say that every day I can see in the diary for the past week that every single time I have overstepped that routine for 5 minutes only. Instead of 30 minutes, I've gone to play for 35 minutes. So I'll be like, okay, 5 minutes is not that much. If it's 5 minutes on a daily basis, I will give myself, okay, from now, I'll play for 35 minutes. And then again, I'll go back to the diary and write it every single day and see कि 35 minutes के ऊपर नहीं जाना चाहिए अभी. ठीक है? But now, if it crosses an hour on certain days, or if you play like the full day on certain days, we need to figure out the reason why it's happened. So now I can say, okay, going back on that day, probably I had this huge fight with a friend and that was continuously playing on my mind. And to distract myself, I played video games the whole day. So I today come to know from that diary itself what are the reasons I play video games. And now, if I'm using an unhealthy coping strategy, I can try and divert my mind to a healthy coping strategy, which we will talk a bit in detail a bit later. So that is one. Keep a diary to keep check as to how long you play your video games. Second, keep phones and other gadgets out of the bedroom so you won't play into the night. Now, at least an hour before you sleep, have a routine. Read a book, listen to songs, calming songs, relaxing songs, which set the mood for relaxing and closing of the day. If you are playing video games which have bright lighting, they have so many graphics, it's training the eyes and it's customizing your eyes to that graphic, and then falling off to sleep becomes that much more difficult. When you read a book, the visuals are much more, the surface is different as compared to your video games or your cell phone reflection, and that's why reading a book is not as strenuous to your eyes as playing video games. So have a nice nighttime routine, listen to music, probably read a book, or just clear your things a bit, talk to your family. So there are a lot of things that you can do just before sleeping to calm and relax both your mind and body. Now, if you before sleeping are playing shooting games or running games and stuff, how are you going to calm your mind and body? That is just giving you that adrenaline rush. So how can you calm yourself down just before going to bed? Then gaming should occur only after you complete other responsibilities for the day. If you're playing games at night, you have, or evening, and probably you have certain chores that you have to do during the day. Now, for example, one chore of yours took extra time. That doesn't mean you kind of let go of the others and say that, okay, now it's my video game time, so I am not going to do anything else. You have to finish everything else and then keep that video game play of 30 minutes, 1 hour, or how much ever is suitable for you as a reward system. Ki now I've finished everything, let me give myself a small reward so that I feel good about myself, and make sure that reward is to the restricted time that we used in point number 1. So it acts as a reward. You finished everything that you needed to do, and now you can let yourself go a bit. Do other activities every day, including exercise. This will lower the health risks of sitting and playing for long stretches of time. So it's very important that you do other activities throughout the day, like exercising. So when you play video games for hours sitting, uh, we are slouching, we are not moving. It decreases our metabolism rate. It keeps our mind only to that screen, or if it's a phone, it's such a small screen, your mind is only there. So much of focus and concentration is going. So take breaks, do certain exercises, move around the house. It's going to relax your body and mind, and your focus is going to go on other things as well. Now, obviously, with the pandemic, you probably, if you previously went to the gym or went to play certain sports and now you cannot because of the pandemic, that doesn't mean you kind of disregard it totally. You can do a lot of exercises even in your rooms, even in your houses. There are so many at home workouts which people are developing and even putting it out there on social media, on YouTube. There are so many videos you can see and actually do exercises. Simple exercises like doing abs, crunches, doing sit-ups, doing squats, lunges, all static but very good exercises to keep the muscles going. You can just do skipping. It's on the spot. You just need a rope and it keep you agile. It'll keep you really fit. So it's very important to include exercise. Other parts is set a routine and include other stress relieving activities. So it's very important that you do other stress relieving activities. If you remember that we discussed, that one of the signs of video game addiction is that it acts as a way to make you feel better when you're sad, irritated, angry. It acts as a coping strategy, albeit a negative, unhealthy coping strategy. If you set a routine and include coping strategies which are positive, you yourself will see that I do not really need to play video games when I don't feel like. Okay? When you feel like playing video games for those set number of hours or set number of minutes in a day, you should be more than free to do that. It's a good hobby, but doesn't mean it becomes an addiction. So include other stress relieving activities in your daily routine to kind of let go of the negative stressors and tensions in life, which include exercise. It can include drawing, coloring. It relieves a lot of stress from the body and mind. It can include cooking, gardening, talking to your friends, going for a walk if you can, going for a run. There are so many other stress relieving activities that you can do. You can meditate. You can practice mindfulness, a very simple but a very useful technique to kind of just let go of a lot of stress and focus on the present moment. Why has the pandemic caused so much tension? Because I don't know what is going to happen tomorrow. There's a lot of uncertainty. We are always, as humans, thinking about the future. Ki kal kya hoga? What will I do tomorrow at work? What will I do tomorrow at school? What will I eat tomorrow? Where will I go tomorrow? What will I wear? What clothes will I wear tomorrow? We are always thinking about tomorrow and the future. And because of the pandemic, because of the lockdowns and the curfews, we haven't been able to plan anything for the future. A lot of uncertainty. We don't know when the next lockdown will be announced. So because of this, it brings a lot of stress to us. Now, instead of thinking about the future, an uncertain future, or a past mistake that you might have done, with mindfulness, we think about the present situation. We are here and now and thinking about our breathing at the present situation, which really calms our mind and body. So practice mindfulness, practice meditation. You don't act if you're not interested in doing yoga and stuff, that's perfectly fine. Just focus on your breathing. How you breathe in, it brings a lot of positivity. Breathe out from your mouth, let off all the toxins, a lot of negativity out of your body, and just focus on your breathing for at least a few minutes in a day. It's going to help you stay in the present moment, and you'll see that all your stresses and tensions already start decreasing. So set a routine, include other stress relieving activities. We are used to having a routine. We are always used to having a routine since we were kids. So you need to set a new routine if your old routine has gone for a toss. Wake up, do certain mindfulness, meditate, spend time with family, call up friends and family if you cannot meet them. Socially distancing yourself from people doesn't mean you cannot even call them, cannot talk to them, video call them. So set a certain time for certain tasks in a day, write them down in a diary, and make sure you follow them. That is going to keep you from getting a lot of free time and then playing video games. So in the end, okay, last thing for you to probably think about is, how do you decide if you are getting addicted to video games or if you're getting addicted to anything in general? How do you know? Ask yourself this question. Do you feel like you've crossed the line between loving to playing and having to play? You started playing video games because you loved it, you enjoyed it. But having an addiction means you have to play. You have no choice, you have no option. So, what is your answer? Do you still love to play for that small amount of time that you do? Or do you have to play and disregard everything else that that is happening around you just to focus on that one area? Okay? So these were the signs. So first we started off with how we can kind of differentiate between esports, that is for professional players, and video game addiction, which is on a rise because of the pandemic. We have too much free time. We discussed about the signs of gaming addiction. We discussed about certain behaviors. Let me just go back and show you. Yes, so what is video game addiction? The signs of video game addiction, you have to have 5 or more of these signs in a year. Effects of video game addiction, the 4 things: financial, social, psychological, and physiological. Candy Crush, it really satisfies the board public. Why we are engaged a lot in games like this is because as humans, we hate leaving goals incomplete. Why during the pandemic the video game addiction is on a rise when all the other businesses are probably falling. And a lot of coping strategies that are discussed, which you can start applying from today if you feel you are addicted to video games or any addiction for that matter. Setting a routine, doing certain physical tasks, doing certain mental tasks on a daily basis is going to stimulate mentally and physically, which is going to be better for your mental and physical health. And in the end, ask yourself this question is, do you feel you have crossed the line between loving to play and having to play? Because any kind of addiction is going to be compulsive. Those people do not have a choice. So yes, that was today's webinar about video game addiction and its effect on mental health. If you have any queries about video gaming, about addiction, about mental health, sports psychology, you feel free to drop me an email or follow me on social media or message me on social media, and I will answer to the best of my abilities. So that was it for me today. I think we have some time to take any questions if there are, and I'll be more than happy to answer that. So if there are any questions, you all can just unmute yourself or you can, type it in the chat box, and I'll be more than happy to answer that for you.
So Nupur ma'am,
Yeah.
two of my colleagues, which is Bharat Krishnani and Pulkit,
Yeah.
them will be, putting the questions forward so you can
Okay.
answer.
Perfect.
Good evening, ma'am.
Bharat, you can take the floor.
Yeah, good afternoon, ma'am. So thank you for such a wonderful session. I think it was very informative, and I think so most of the questions which we had set for you, I think I've answered in the PPT itself, but some just join in later, so I'll just cover the questions once again. So
Right.
my first question for you is that since you said about the pandemic and everyone is at home, so what was the most major impact does online media and platforms and gaming have on mental health? The most important factor.
Okay, so why don't I just share the screen for
Yeah,
people
yeah,
who
sure,
probably,
Yes,
were a bit late. I'll just share it back again so that I can show it to you on the slide itself. I think that would be a bit better. Just a moment. Okay. Yes, so when we talk about pandemic and video game addiction, it's increased because there are few factors for its increase. One is basically because of the third point where it says that there's a lack of routine and too much free time. As human beings, we are always surrounded by routines, and especially if there are any athletes in the participants, you will know that your life revolves around routines and certain regimes that you have to follow. So, since we are born, since we go to kindergarten and then school and then work, we are always around a certain routine which has gone for a toss at the current moment because of the pandemic. And because of that, we have a lot of free time. What do we do with the free time? There is no structure. So our mind goes to video games because it is it's a lot of fun to play, right? When you start playing, it's very addictive. You are with your friends, you're going on new adventures, you're getting status, you're getting recognition, you're getting those stars, when you cross certain levels. So it gives you everything in a short span of time, and that is something why video game addiction is on a rise. Also, because of the lockdown, there's a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, and that leads to a lot of irritability, a lot of anger. And what do we do with the anger? We feel like, taking it out of someone. Now we can't take it out on people around us, so we take it out on video games where we blow up stuff, where we kill people, where we shoot things. So that acts as a way of a coping strategy to release the negative tensions and stresses which you might be going through. Now obviously this is a very unhealthy way of coping with everything that you're going through, and that is why we need more coping strategies in a more positive and healthier manner, which we can use in order to release the stress and tension. And I think, like I said earlier also, we cannot we want to problem solve. When you go to work, when you go to school, we are problem solving and getting compliments for it. It's not there right now, and that's why we try to problem solve and get compliments from video games. Okay, so I think that was covering this slide, I think, in a brief way.
yes, ma'am.
And I hope that answered the question as well.
Yes. Now, my second question is that how do video games simulate the brain to be addicted to it a lot? Like, how does it affect, like, majorly affect which areas? Like, I've heard like it affects the brain cells a lot.
Right.
When I was small, I used to listen to that you play too much game, it affects your brain cells.
Right.
It reduces the brain cells. So,
Right.
what's your view on that perspective? What do you say about it? Is it
Okay.
true or wrong? That's the thing I want to know.
So it is true. So I am not. I'll be very honest with you. I am not the master of neuroscience. Okay. So yes, there are certain hormonal changes. There are certain areas of the brain that it triggers, and that's why you get attracted to it. If you will want the changes in your hormones, the names and stuff, I will not know those neurotransmitter names. But yes, I totally agree saying that there are changes which happen in your brain, like even with your eyes itself, the amount of eye strain that you get, those different colors, they only keep popping up, and that is what stimulates the brain as well. Like I also said with Candy Crush, we do not want to break or take a break if we have not completed a level, because humans have evolved in such a way. So that is also part of our neuroscience, of our biology, which acts in gaming as self, which obviously makers of the games are also aware of. And that is why the starting of those levels of those games are easier as compared to when you go up higher. And that is why we don't like leaving tasks or goals incomplete, and that is why we stick to those games. Probably sometimes don't like it, but we want to complete those goals, we want to complete those levels to feel better. So I'm sure there is some neurochemical changes that happen in your brain, but I'd probably have to read up a bit more on the names of the neurochemicals, or you can probably ask a person who is a clinical psychologist. They will have more information about this.
Got it, ma'am. Ma'am, we were live on YouTube also, so
Oh,
I
wow.
got this question over YouTube, that is video games helpful for physical fitness? If not, is it possible that we can convert some games into physical, practical, and helping in developing physical, mental fitness? So,
Okay. So video games do not have any physical benefit. Yes, there have been studies which show that they do have mental benefits. Your concentration increases, your focus increases. People with children with ADHD, attention deficit
yeah.
hyperactivity disorder, have been known to give in certain video games, obviously not the violent ones, but more of concentration games, which have increased their concentration and their focus. But obviously, that has been done with a lot of clinical supervision and in as a routine. You don't just give those games to those kids and just say, like, play. We don't do that. It has to be under a lot of clinical supervision. But in my opinion, I don't think they have any physical benefits. Yes, with a lot of dart games, you do get your focus and your बोलते हैं ना, nishana,
Yes, yes.
that becomes better. But if you want to transfer video games to physical ones, I don't know. I think it's probably something that can be looked upon, but there are so many physical sports and physical exercises that are already there. I think we should explore those a bit more in detail before trying to convert something that is in a video game and then trying to make it physical.
Okay, because I got to hear from in US they have these virtual reality where they do
Right.
temple run. The person actually runs with that
Yeah.
having that glass on their eyes and they're running.
Yeah.
So some part physical fitness is coming in between, but not too
Yeah.
much is explained right now. So
Yeah, that is true. So even if we have these mystery houses,
yeah.
so that is a part, something which had been probably more in a video game, which has been converted to something doing physical also.
Yes.
But it's not physical in that nature. Like, you're not running around, you're not sweating. Probably it's more of fun. So it can't be used as a physical exercise.
Okay, and now I'll be passing on my other colleague Pulkit, and he'll be taking on some of the questions which he has prepared and he has got from the YouTube. So I'll pass it on to him. Thanks, ma'am.
Pulkit, you can take the rest of the questions.
Yes, so hi ma'am. So the first question is, how is e-sport and mental health, how they're interrelated?
Okay. So are we talking about esports as a professional aspect, or are we talking more in terms of video game addiction?
Esports as a profession.
Okay. So yes, esports as a professional aspect also does affect your mental health, because you need long amounts of concentration, long amounts of focus to play that sport. When we go back, and I'll show you this picture. Look at the crowd which is there. Look at the people who are just there to, watch them compete on a video game. The amount of pressure they also face is really a lot. It's immense. So, and we also have to take into consideration that whoever are the players of these esport games, they are very young. They are young teenagers, older teenagers who have been, given a lot of importance in these come in these last few years, and they've just been let out into the limelight. And because esports is booming right now, even their careers are booming. They have a lot of prize pools which are very huge. So a lot of them actually do face mental health issues. They also face depression. They also face certain even eating disorders, because sometimes they're so much into the game that they're not even eating properly. So yes, they also face mental health issues. Albeit there's very less research conducted in esports and mental health, because it's a new phenomenon. But a lot of esport companies have been hiring sports psychologists to help and reduce these mental health issues, to obviously give them techniques, give them strategies to ease the pressure, because they're very young. So how do I ease the pressure for them? How do I give them strategies to concentrate for such long periods of time? So a lot of work and research that is ongoing in terms of esports and mental health.
Okay, ma'am. Next question is, many people say that gaming creates violence and a lot of behavior change in a person.
Mm-hmm.
So, which may be true in some people and which it may not be true. Like, what are your views on that?
Also, every mind is unique. The same stimulus might not affect every single person the same way. So if person A sees violence, which is there in gaming, a lot of gaming, it might not have any effect on them. Okay? They are neutral. But for another person, person B, who sees that same violence, what it can do is they can neutralize violence for them. Ki this is very normal. So when it happens around in real life also, it doesn't affect that person how it actually should. It normalizes violence for kids, even adults, and that is something which is backfiring on the video games which are focusing on violence. So that is something, obviously not everyone will be affected, but that doesn't mean that it is good to play violent video games and stuff. So every person is going to be affected differently. But what violence does, when you see violence in video games, it normalizes it for a lot of people. They're like, theek hai, chal raha hai. So when it happens around us also in real life, they'll be like, okay, I've seen it. What different is it from a video game to a real life? They can't differentiate that when it happens in real life, it is something. It is gruesome. It's a serious situation. So that they don't understand. And that is why when young kids are introduced to violent video games, it is affecting their mental health. So at least for kids, violent video games is a big no. It makes them more aggressive. Like when they go on shooting rampages in video games, they are more prone to kind of hurt people, even physically, even in real life, because they've normalized it. So especially in kids, we should not be exposing them to violent video games at all.
Yeah, like they mimic the game also. Like they
Exactly.
take a gun and they like
Yeah.
and shoot you, and like they get very aggressive also.
True, and that's why I think in one of the slides it was there that kids below 10, especially there was a research conducted where kids below 10, they show a lot of aggressive behavior if they even see. So probably their older brother or older sister might be playing video games. They're 20, 21, but when they're younger and they see their older brother and sister play also, and they see the screen, that also affects them. So they shouldn't, even if older people want to play, the kids shouldn't be in that environment at all, because is again normalizing normalizing that behavior for them, which should not occur.
So there is one more question about addiction in gaming. Sometimes we can't leave this addiction even if we want to, just because these progress we made and the time we invested, it's kind of a loss in somehow. How would you look at it?
True. Is it really a loss if it's harming you? Right? So you got to ask that question to yourself. Yeah, you put in those many hours, you've reached, a lot of levels. And I know when you play Fortnite and stuff and you reach those levels, it is a very big thing. But it's harming you right now. So what would you prefer? Letting go of those hours and feeling good about yourself, or continuing playing that video game and harming yourself? So this is what a person who is kind of addicted to video games would kind of use as a defense mechanism. I've put hours and hours of work. Why should I leave it now? How can I leave it now? You know, I've played so many hours, I've put in so much hard work behind it, and it is hard work also. If I've put in that much hard work, how do I let go of it now? But but you have to understand that you've reached a stage where it's not fun for you anymore. It's a compulsion, it's a behavior that is harming you and the people around you. So if you want a healthier life, a more positive life, you have to let go of these addictions which are harming you, right? And it's not only for video gaming addiction, it's internet addiction, it's getting addicted to drugs, to alcohol, all these things you've put in hours of time with, but at one point of time when it harms and hurts your body and mind, you have to let go of it and look at the more positive side.
Ma'am,
Yep.
I think this is the one final question that I have to ask you that I got through the YouTube live video,
Okay.
personal chat, that when we play games, we try to relax our mind because we
Yeah.
try to calm ourselves after working a lot for long hours. So someone has a question, since these games are stress reliever in some way, but aren't they overstimulants as well? But like, and what's your take on this for professional gamers?
They're definitely overstimulants, and yes, like I said, they are stress relievers, but they are unhealthy ways of relieving stress. They're not healthy ways of relieving stress. When you have a hard day of work, you can come home and relax and unwind by talking to family about what you might be facing, about any issues that you might be facing. You might write a diary, you might meditate, you might do cooking, you might draw. These are also very stress relieving activities. So even if you do play video games as a stress relieving activity, it should not become an addiction. You play it once in a few days as just to relax, kaam ke baad you're sitting with your friends virtually and playing once in 2 or 3 days, that's perfectly fine. But it should not become something that you have to do every single day after you come home. That becomes an addiction, and an unhealthy one, obviously. So that is the reason why we don't support that you use video games as a way of releasing stress and anxiety and tension, because it's an unhealthy way of coping. You get addicted to it. It's an overstimulus. You are relaxing, but when you're playing that video game, again you're tensed because you're playing to win. So how is it actually relaxing? It's just distracting you from your tensions. It's not really relaxing. When you're fighting and when you're using all your limbs and stuff and wanting to win, it's not really a relaxing activity if you see it in the long run. It might be for that day, but if you do it on a daily basis, it's not relaxing. It's an overstimulus, and there are many more healthier ways which you can use to relax and unwind after a tough day at work or at school or anywhere.
True, man, because like the use of like the technology being advanced every day, day by day, whether it's in gaming or the normal mobile apps, people
Yeah.
have forgotten to play the traditional games you should play with your family at home.
Right.
Mind games are so many to play with your family that can calm your mind, but because of
I
this
know. So, like
technology
a
coming up,
game like, Ludo, we used to have fun sitting with your
that's a
family members and playing. But now it's on the phone,
true, man.
right? So, there's so much changed. But if you want to live a healthier life, you want to be around people, you want to be happier in a long run. Now, you have to think about from the long run perspective. If you want that, then you have to choose the more traditional ways sometimes. You can't always say that, okay, technology hai, so I have to use it.
Exactly.
Right? You can play the traditional way. There's no harm in doing that. There's so much fun playing Ludo the normal way also.
Right, ma'am. I think, ma'am, I'm done with my questions. Like,
Done?
we got the answers, and one of our colleagues, Ishan, has a question.
Sure.
So he wants to ask you. So Ishan can go ahead.
Hi, ma'am. So, firstly, great webinar. Thank you so much. And we have got some wonderful insights on esports and mental health. So, I'm just diverting a topic a bit towards the career guidance. So, since a lot of us are from sports management, and some of our participants are already working professionals. So, why don't you just give us a bit idea about how one can, pursue a career of sports psychologist? So what are the ways, what are the courses available, what are the prospectus in India?
Okay. So how you can become a sports psychologist in India is by either you do a bachelor's in psychology, which is generally preferable, that you're on your third year, all your subjects are going to be about psychology. If you do a bachelor's in psychology, it's preferable. Then you follow it up with a master's course. Either you do it abroad or you can do it in India as well. There are 4 universities currently in India who are offering a master's course in sports psychology. And after that, you can either go the PhD route and do a PhD if you want. But if you want to start practicing in India, you can directly start practicing after a master's. You don't need to get a license as such, which is required in clinical psychology, like an RCI, because there is no governing body in India for sports psychology at the moment. Like if you see UK, you have the BPS, the British Psychological Society, you have the AASP in America. So they have governing bodies over there, wherein after a master's course, you have to do a supervision course under a supervisor. Once you pass that, then you can start practicing as a sports psychologist. But in India, we don't have that governing body at the moment. But obviously, if you want to practice sports psychology, I think with integrity and with ethics, you need to at least complete a master's, gain a lot of knowledge. There's so many small certification courses, diplomas, internships that you can do. So try and just increase and gain knowledge before diving into becoming a practicing sports psychologist. So that's one way. The second way, because we do not have a governing body at the moment, you can do a general master's in psychology, may it be counseling, clinical, industrial, whatever it may be, followed by a certification course in sports psychology by an accredited university abroad. So if you have a certification course by the BPS, you complete that course and then you can start practicing as a sports psychologist. I know a lot of sports psychologists who have taken that route because it's a fairly new field. They had already completed their masters and after that they were introduced to sports psychology and they wanted a career change. So these are 2 routes in which you can become a sports psychologist in India. There are a lot of universities abroad which have sports psychology in their curriculum and 4 universities in India. But I know I've said this multiple times that we do not have a governing body for sports psychology, but that does not mean you don't put in that hard work, that effort, that dedication. So do a lot of entail and a lot of certification courses, a lot of diploma, a lot of small courses just to increase that knowledge. So many workshops happening, be a part of those workshops, gain knowledge, and then dive into practicing as a sports psychologist.
So, ma'am, there were 2 questions which popped up, one of which you had already answered in your PPT. So one of it is, what is the first stage to identify if a kid or a grown-up is addicted to mobile or a video game which is played virtually?
Okay, so let's go back to the slide where we have the signs of video game addiction. This is available on the internet also. We have the ICD, which lists out these signs, which are signs that you are addicted to video games. So if you're a parent who is wondering, is my child addicted to video games? Have a look at these signs, keep a list of them, and try and figure out how many tick marks you put across them. And if there are 5 or more in a year, then it does mean that that child is addicted to video games. So the first sign would be that they're probably just spending too much time playing the video game and they're blocking out or not paying attention to everything around them. They're probably moving on and not entailing in the activities they like to, and now they are just stuck on that one video game the whole time. So one thing, I think the first thing that a parent can do is just try once to tell your child not to play it and see their reaction. If their reaction is negative, filled with anger, irritation, means that that child may be on the path to becoming addicted to video games. So just one time say no and see what their reaction is. If the reaction is negative and vastly negative, means that there are already certain signs of addiction that are starting to pop up. So that is one thing that you can start off with.
Ma'am, and the other question which popped up is, can you suggest any esports which is healthy for students and can be played with each other like a competition? Also, Minecraft is a creative game.
Right. So I am not very big on esports. Okay, I don't really play it. I played PUBG for some time, but these are certain games I think which you can try playing with friends. Obviously, don't make an addiction. Don't try and play it the whole day by leaving out other activities, or actually, doing physical activities which are good for you. You can play it as fun for certain amounts of time. PUBG, Fortnite, League of Legends, they're all activities. FIFA, they're all activities that you can do along with your friends virtually. Yes, Minecraft, it is a mind game, like you said. There are a lot of mind games, a lot of concentration games, a lot of memory games which are there online, which are good, right? I'm not saying don't play those games, but also don't get addicted to those games, also saying that I want to play only that game and do nothing else in life, right? Play some of these games for some periods of time, and that is going to be beneficial. There are many studies which have shown that some amount of video game playing is beneficial for your mental health. So it has to be a minimum time span. It cannot be hours and hours together, and that is what kind of differentiates between having fun and playing for some amount of time and gaining certain knowledge, as opposed to being addicted to a video game. So there are certain games you can play with friends and have fun. You play a lot of memory games, a lot of concentration games, which are good for you, but have a stop at it. Know when you want to stop, and do other activities as well.
Ma'am, also there was a Mythbuster question which was asked that on Google there were a lot of researchers which said that playing video games like car racing and Candy Crush would help a kid build up in his concentration. What is your views on that?
Yeah, like I said previously, it does, but you have to restrict the use of how long do you play those games. There are a lot of games which are helpful, uh, but we have to put a time limit to it. You cannot play it the full day and still expect it to be beneficial for a child or even as an adult, because then we are only focusing on one aspect, that is video games. We're not focusing on anything else, and we need to focus on all areas of life in order for a holistic development. So yes, certain amount of video game has shown to be beneficial for mental growth, but it has to be limited for a certain amount of time, and you have to focus on other areas of your life as well, like physical exercise, schooling, work, friends, family. All these things also need to be given equal amount of importance for a more holistic growth and development.
Yes, ma'am. So we're done with the whole question answers. And also on behalf of NASM and our whole team and Justex, we would like to thank you for giving us such a wonderful, insightful session. There were a lot of myths which were busted, and there were a lot of doubts which are cleared. And, there were a lot of helpful things also during the whole session which could help us throughout. So I would like to thank you for that, and please keep us in contact so that in future webinars we can keep calling you. And that is the end of the session. I would also like to thank Mr. Krishant Sharma, who is our faculty from NEMD. He joined us, and on behalf of our other faculties, because they could not join in. So I would like to thank Krishant sir for joining. And yes, participants, if you all want to unmute yourself and ask something, or give some feedback to the speaker or to our team, you all can do that. You all can raise your hand, we'll unmute. Okay, so there's no one who's giving any kind of feedback. So, ma'am, we'll end the session here. Thank you
Great.
again, all participants, for joining in. Please stay tuned for any more webinars. We'll be putting them shortly on the same group. So don't leave the group, and keep yourself home and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, and I hope we can have more of these webinars in future, and I'll always be in touch for future webinars. So thank you, and stay safe, everyone. And hopefully, I will see you all soon, very soon again. Okay. Thank you. Bye bye.
I'll just
Thank
launch
you.
a small poll, feedback poll, and then you all can fill that and you all can start leaving the session.